Thanks for joining us. Today we tackle Brevard County's local news and information media. Who does it serve? Is it failing? Is it biased? And what about all those changes in digital technology? I'm Matt Reed, columnist and senior editor here at the ultra-modern Florida Today. Joining me are Josh Field, president of Space Coast Business Media Group. He is editor-in-chief of Space Coast Business and Space Coast Living magazines. And Bill Mick, host of Bill Mick Live on radio station WMMB. Bill also serves as program director for News Talk 1240. We're competitors, yes, but also colleagues in a deadline-driven, fast-changing media market around the world, the Space Coast included. So don't be surprised if one of them throws a question back my way. Gentlemen, I think I want to start with Josh. Who is your target audience for magazines here in Brevard County, and how are you doing honestly at reaching them right now?
Well, first of all, Matt, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Our target audience for magazines in Brevard really is the adult 25 to 65 audience, our primary buying advertising audience as well. We actually are very excited about the latest numbers that have come out. We are the only local print media that buys media audits. Our numbers last year showed us reaching about 108,000 readers in the Brevard area, 108 adult readers in the Brevard area. And I don't know how much about the history you know, but we took over Space Coast Living in March of 2008, I apologize. So we've only had 1 year's worth of data coming up right now. So I just heard yesterday that we're now reaching 160,000 readers in Space Coast Living alone. So we're very excited about the numbers and the reach that we're delivering to our advertisers.
And Bill, radio is obviously a different, very different kind of a business. How about your program and WMMB in general?
We are primarily targeted adults 35-64, strong secondary audience of 25-54. Being a talk radio station, we're going to skew 60-40 men to women, and we pretty much hit that. Numbers will come out next week from our latest ratings period, but we anticipate them being strong as they have been since I returned from California 2 years ago.
Tell me a little bit about what goes into the planning of a typical edition. What kind of things that you're trying to reach that audience, but are there certain things that you want to see in every magazine to hit them?
Well, keep in mind we have two magazines, so we have sort of two complementary platforms. One is a lifestyle publication, one is a business publication. So we're reaching different audiences. The business publication is very much more geared towards local business owners, the heads of the big corporations, government officials, educational leaders, whereas the lifestyle publication skews much more to a female demographic. So we can cover a lot more, and we have a little bit more fun on the lifestyle side. We take the business side, addresses a little bit more of the serious issues facing business owners in Brevard County. You know, we've provided, and the genesis of Space Coast Business was very much to provide a forum for the local business community. It is very much of a collaborative magazine. If you're familiar with it, half of our editorial content comes from business leaders submitting, their opinions or their leadership advice on a number of different topics. So what we kind of do is we pick a different focus every month, and we kind of ride with that. We do 3 or 4 feature stories that address that particular issue. It may be entrepreneurs. This current edition is on nonprofits. And Space Coast Living, on the other hand, is much more the people, the places. We try to cover, if you step back and said, what's the mission of Space Coast Business Media Group, it's really to celebrate Brevard County, and we are the place to work, live, and play. So we can cover work and business, live and play is a little bit more on the lifestyle side in Space Coast Living.
Bill, what goes into preparing for your program? I know you have to
Other than getting up at 3:30 in the morning?
Yeah.
What we do, and especially being a talk radio format, my goal, if I'm going to do a national story, is to beat Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Mark Levin to the punch. I want to have that story at 5:30 in the morning ready to go at 6 before they have it at 9, noon, or 3. And to be relevant and current immediately, the elements of the show or what we try to do is have something that hits the listener at home, something that they're engaged with, something that's going to impact them, and bring into the discussion how it's going to impact them from my perspective. My show's about opinions, mine, theirs, yours on the days you're on with me, and we take that opinion and we craft it into a community conversation where we may not come up with solutions, but we suggest solutions and we talk about the problems in the community, and it's how do we hit the folks at home. It's a local driven thing as well. The thing we're able to do better than national media, better than a Glenn Beck or a Rush Limbaugh, would be we can deal with the local issues as well.
Brevard County government, Brevard County
Absolutely.
politics, those kinds of things. Josh, I was studying up on the magazine business this morning, and I came across this in an article from the Guardian newspaper in the UK. Quote, "The shift from big circulation mass market magazines to niche titles is a clear trend, as is the move from print to digital, although its speed and scale are sometimes exaggerated." What do you make of that?
Well, it's interesting. You know, I haven't been in this business that long, so I can't say that I've experienced that over a long period of time. Certainly, we're dealing in Brevard County. Anything we do here is going to be a niche publication. I moved here from Dallas, and I've lived in other big cities, so the genesis of the magazine was very much there was an unfulfilled need in the community, and we tried to go out and fill it. That was where Space Coast Business came from. If you want to call that a niche publication, great, I guess it is. But it's been doing very well, and it was very well accepted from, you know, the initial launch back in April of 2006 till now.
If I contrast that right now with Business Week, from what I understand, which is on the block and possibly struggling. So,
well, you know, I don't need to tell you that, you know, there's 24-hour news available today in every medium available. So you have to think about how do you deliver value to your readers or your listeners. You know, we can do that by, as Bill said, by addressing the local issues as they may relate to larger national issues. So, you know, yes, there's a recession going on, but how does that affect the local business owner? We can talk about things like that. Now, as far as the conversion to digital, yes, it's happening. I think it's happening slower in our side of the business than perhaps in the newspaper side of the business, but it's definitely something that's on our radar screen. It's something that we see as a certain value added to our advertisers and our readers.
Bill, I read this in Talkers magazine, the trade journal of talk radio business. Quote, "We hear the word branding thrown around a lot these days. It is a crucial element in the modern marketing. What is really important to digest is that in today's dizzying digital environment, branding also plays a direct role in generating revenue for every molecule of your product's expanded monetary worth." I'm sorry. What does that mean to you in the Bill McLive Show?
Well, much like what Josh is talking about with his magazines, we have the same thing in radio. We have our niche titles as well. We've got the weekend programming, things like Just Cruising with Larry Jackson from Cruise Holidays, who goes on the air 1 hour a week and talks about cruise vacations and how we are fortunate to be here in Brevard County, and you can go jump on a cruise ship anytime you want to. Saturday afternoons, we've got Jim Banky with Space Talk. And as big as space is here in this community, and it is for the world, great to have that programming opportunity available. But you're right, everything digital comes into play too, and we brand everything. Whether you go to WMMB radio, you go to the WMMB on the website, or you go to WMMB on our Insider, the email that we send out every Thursday to our subscriber list that has my column, an Insider phone line for people to call the show and be bumped to the head of the line. If calls are waiting and they get on the Insider line, they're coming up first. Everything ties back to the one product, and we are more and more web focused every day. We've got listeners that are on the stream. We've got listeners who don't listen to us live, or we're on the stream. They'll go get the podcast at their convenience. So everything's going to that web, and you've got to be able to use that tool and use it well. And it is also revenue based.
Well, I know we do that too with my watchdog group that we work on. You know, we have obviously my column that comes out 3 times a week. We do investigations that come out logoed with the Brevard watch list. We have our daily watch list blog. And of course, we have this television program here that's on cable TV and floortoday.com. I want to shift gears a little bit to something a little bit more general. Legendary anchorman Walter Cronkite recently passed away. Josh and Bill, I'd like to get your perspective on this passage from Associated Press culture writer Ted Anthony on changes in our industry. He writes, "Uncle Walter, we called him. But on the internet, there's not much use for uncles. We are now confronted with a rushing 24-hour river of information, much of it chaotic and raw, with no one to shepherd us through it. Today's model works more like this. Everyone vies to get his personalized, customized, agenda-driven version of "that's the way it is," enshrined in the cultural canon. We shout, cajole, maneuver, horse trade. We demonize the opposition. If you've got a TV or a laptop, you're plugged into the whole planet, and you can have your say. No one person can speak for us all, and those who tried would be put in their places as fast as you can say, Edward R. Murrow. You see that happening? Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting that no room for those internet uncles, and most of those internet uncles probably have restrictions on where they can live once they get out of prison. But Walter Cronkite brought us news in a fashion that we could touch, or we could trust. And I remember sitting there from the time I was a child till I was well into my adult years. I went to CBS and Walter Cronkite because of the way he delivered the news. And there didn't seem, although it was there, I was too young to realize it, there didn't seem to be a mix of the opinion in the news. He delivered it well, he delivered it straight. Now everybody's got an opinion. You've got bloggers on your website. We have the emailers to my website. We have some control issues as far as the comments that can and will be made, and I'm sure you guys have seen them as well. When you've got Joe Everyman with the capability of posting something on your website that you're responsible for, and especially when you're in a federal controlled media with your licenses through the FCC, we don't want to give them a reason to control our internet broadcasts and our internet content. So I can't have unrestrained content going onto the website. Right. So we're very careful when it comes to that, as much as I'd like to have that web interaction.
Well, you know, it leads to a sort of an interesting phenomenon, and that is what's going to happen with this next generation of kids and their, you know, how are they going to go get the news? Because if they are
what do they perceive as news?
Well, exactly, and you know, how much of this do they believe anymore? Mm-hmm. You know, you've got guys on, you know, obviously you've got things like from the Drudge Report to Perez Hilton, who, you know, put things out there that you got to take everything with a grain of salt. Meanwhile, you look at the networks. You know, the Today Show, you know, essentially is just newsed up Entertainment Weekly, or it seems to be becoming that. So, you know, the days of Walter Cronkite, sorry to say, but you know, news has become entertainment.
Matt, how's it impacted what you guys do? Is you guys have regular contributing bloggers. You have the folks who comment at the end of every story. How does it change your perspective as a reporter when you've got everybody in the community writing their own version of the story on your own website?
I'm glad you brought that up, Bill, because I've been experiencing something kind of ironic. More and more I hear from people right here in Brevard County who proudly absorb their news and information from openly biased or partisan media such as blogs, websites, or certain TV and radio personalities.
Hey, I'm biased, I'll admit it.
But even those politically strident emailers, you know, they're sharing news amongst themselves. But a lot of those same people then turn and demand a purity or perfect balance from their daily newspaper or broadcast news. And when they don't see it through the lens that they've developed, they dismiss the mainstream media as being fatally biased or somehow working against them. And that's probably what I experience the most is when I go out into the public, always having to answer for that. People are feeding themselves and their own ideas, which is a good thing on one hand, but it has also made it much more urgent for us to anticipate what objections will be in our news coverage, obviously to think about balance, but also we can't sit back and just let people take pot shots at us anymore. We really need to be aggressive about standing up for ourselves and standing up for our brands and defending ourselves in a way that I don't think we ever really used to do anymore.
Happened with you a week ago on my show at the Depot Cafe when we're doing the show on the road. Had a listener of mine who's in the restaurant having breakfast, enjoying the show while you and I are standing there talking. In the commercial breaks, he's hammering you over things that have happened in Florida today, either the way coverage is or the way an editorial was written. You've become the public face in that essence, and you're the guy, when you're with me anyway, that they're going to contact. When you're on my show, either in the studio or on the road, they're coming after you to get the answers about Florida today. So I think it's a double-edged sword, but I think there's a good side of this too.
Josh, you have an optimistic publication. I mean, you said yourself this is something that reaches out and takes some angles that we may not, as more of a hard-edged thing. Do you see things getting more raw in the other media?
You know, it's funny because you're right, and you know the things that rile people up can be so trivial sometimes. I mean, we can run a story on who the cutest dogs in Brevard are, and we'll get letters from people that'll say, "How could you have picked that one over this one?" And you know, I think it's just it's the times. You know, people feel that they are entitled to have their opinions heard. There's numerous ways for them to do it now. They're going to hold the media to different standards, perhaps because of incidences that have happened in the past that have caused them to lose faith in mainstream media, whatever it is. You know, I think it holds folks like us up to a higher standard. I think integrity is going to sort of show through. The people that don't demonstrate those types of character in the way that they report the news, or even what we do. I'm not saying we're reporting the news, we're just reporting, we're telling stories. But people can see through that, and you know, we will persevere, Florida Today will persevere, the radio stations will persevere, and you know, they take it with a grain of salt. That's fine, they should question the media. There's nothing wrong with that.
Real quickly, you both have a larger role in the business end of your operations than I do as just a pure journalist. Right now, a lot of different media organizations are suffering a decline along with the rest of the economy. I think a lot of people are concluding that that's an audience problem. Is it an audience problem, or is it a business issue right now in terms of how different media are doing financially?
Well, I think for us, you know, it comes down to delivering value. You've got to deliver value. If you can deliver value to your advertisers, they're going to obviously take an ad, or they're going to take space on the radio.
But if circulation is down, or in other words, our publications, anyone who's seeing a decline in revenue right now because of the economy, do you think that that's because people are tuning out? Or do you think that's just because people have less money to spend on advertising?
Oh, I think it's both. You know, it's very interesting. When we saw the recession start to turn, you know, there were certain advertisers that you saw starting to pull back. Anything that was real estate, construction, builder related, they pulled back. We knew that following that, we were going to see the luxury goods people pull back a little bit. But what's interesting is that when you go through recession, it's a great time to market your business because it's a great time to start getting more market share. As people retrench, the stronger players, the people that are well capitalized, are going to go out and they're going to get their message out in front of the people who may have been used to hearing from someone else. We had a lot of advertisers that never would have advertised before, but saw this as an opportunity. The weak players are falling out. It's a Darwinian time.
It's time for them to make their move.
And that's exactly what's happening. So, you know, we didn't really see ad pages drop off that much. You know, we're still delivering to our audience, and that's an audience that's very coveted by a lot of advertisers. You know, have we had to discount a little bit more? Maybe in a few instances, but, you know, we've been lucky. And we just hope to keep riding that and adding more value to keep them in the books.
Bill, how are you guys doing? Really quickly.
I know you're short on time. Deliver the product, bring the audience. Our audience continues to grow. We'll have the final numbers from the last book here in another couple of days, but all indications are the audience continues to grow. The fall off has been in advertising dollars available, so that's where that's come off. But our folks are working. My show is almost sold out.
That's terrific. Well, that's our show. I want to thank my guests, Josh Field from Space Coast Business Media and Bill Mick from the Bill Mick Live program on WMMB. I'm Matt Reed. We'll see you right back here next week on WBCC and FloridaToday.com. Thanks for joining us.